In this video, I'm going to talk about how much you actually need to retire in 2025 based on these 6 different lifestyles. Now, I opened up my phone the other day and I saw Mary Home, one of New Zealand's most trusted financial journalists, talking about my article, which was talking about how much you need to retire. Now, her column said that some of the numbers seemed preposterous. Now, as someone with over half a decade producing podcasts, recording videos, writing about money and property, that made me go, whew, maybe I need to explain this a little better. Now, you might expect me to say, Mary's wrong. Don't listen to her. Look, I'm not going to do that because Mary had a really good point. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ed, an economist and property investor at Opus Partners, and in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how much you need to retire in 2025 based on these 6 different lifestyles and 4 ways you can make your retirement more affordable. Now, what Mary and I did agree on was that if you just live on NZ Super, the pension, then your retirement is really cheap. You don't need any savings at all. But you also have to live cheaply as well. You're only going to have about $828 a week to spend as a couple, whereas the average Kiwi household spends around $2,000 a week. Of course, when you're older, you might not have a mortgage, so some people live quite happily on super. But Massey University's research also shows that this doesn't even give you a no-frills lifestyle if you just get the pension. And in fact, this pensioner said that a few years ago, he could buy a pie and a donut at the local shop every 3 months or so on his pension, but today he can't do that if he's just on NZ Super. Now, if you're happy living off the super, you don't need any savings at all. But that's where Mary and I started to part ways. You see, when you ask that question, how much do I need to retire? There's kind of no one number because there are 4 ways to make your retirement cheaper or more expensive in terms of the amount of savings that you need. Firstly, you've got, well, how much you actually want to spend. Which of these 6 lifestyles do you want? Are you single or are you in a couple? Because 2 people are more expensive to feed than just 1 person. Well, how are you going to set up your money? And I'll get into that in a moment. And the 4th one is, how fast do you think your investments will go up in value? The faster your investments go up in value, well, the less money you're going to need when you actually retire. And because there are all of these differences, reasonable people can come up with different estimates about, well, how much do you need to retire well? But here's the thing. Mary pointed out one way to make your retirement cheaper that I'd missed. It's whether you want your spending to keep up with inflation as you get older. Now, in the past, I'd always thought, look, of course, you want to keep buying the same amount of stuff as you get older. You don't want to buy less meat or fewer potatoes just because the prices have gone up. But just 2 months before this column hit the Herald, the New Zealand Society of Actuaries, which are basically the number nerds of New Zealand, just released this report. And it shows that the average retiree does cut back on their spending as they get older. And I guess this makes sense. When you're 65, you're young-ish, you're healthy, you're still traveling, you're going out for lunch, doing all of this fun stuff with your friends. But when you're 90, well, your health probably doesn't let you take as many overseas holidays. You're probably not going out to the movies every week, and sadly, some of your friends will no longer be around. And so the reality is your spending just naturally starts to drop. And this can make your retirement way cheaper. And that's why if you want to live on the no-frills lifestyle where you and your partner spend $913 a week, you might need as little as $20,000 in the bank when you retire. And what that means is you can spend $27 a week on fruit and vegetables for 2 people. You can spend $51 a week either going out for dinner or buying a few microwave meals, and you can spend $18 a week on alcohol. But remember, if you set your retirement up really cheaply and only retire with those $20,000, as those fruits and vegetables get more expensive, you're buying less of them. For your spending to keep up with those cost of living increases, you'd need around $119,000 in the bank. And you use these savings and returns to top up your superannuation. Now, if you really want to take it further and set up your money so it basically never runs out and you only live off the returns of your investments and never spend your original nest egg, then you'd need closer to $206,000. That way, you've also got some money to pass on to the kids or keep your options open later in life. So how you set up your money for your retirement really impacts how much you need. And if you want to see more of these, well, how do I prepare for retirement type videos? Do me a quick favor and hit the like button. That's how I know what sort of videos you want to see more of, and honestly, it just helps with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribing, that helps too. We are over halfway to our goal of growing this community to 50,000 subscribers. Now, if you want to spend $1,700 a week in retirement, you're going to be on the Choices lifestyle. And that's where you go on a few domestic holidays, dine out every now and again. You're not buying Gucci, you're not buying Prada, but hey, you're not clipping coupons either. Now, if you want to do it on that cheaper side where your spending doesn't keep up with inflation, you might only need $630,000 as a couple. If you want to spend your money and eventually die with zero, but your spending's keeping up with inflation over that time, you'd need around $1 million. And if you never want to touch your investments, you just want to pass those on to your kids, you only ever want to live off the returns, well, you're going to need a lot more to be closer to 1.8 million. Again, in these three scenarios, it's the same level of spending at 65. The only thing we're changing is how you're setting up your money and setting up your retirement. And this has a big difference in terms of how much money you're going to need to live that lifestyle. Once we get up to $1,900 a week, you're spending roughly 100 grand a year. And if you do that in retirement, you're on the well-off lifestyle. And this is what most investors we work with at Opus aim for, because then you have more choices. The home you live in, the holidays you take. You can go overseas every year, maybe more, depending on how you manage your money. And if you earn good money during your working life, this helps you maintain that standard right throughout your retirement. So how much do we need in the bank at 65 to make this happen? Well, again, if you're not bothered with keeping up with the cost of living, just under 800K could do it. Though, if you do want your spending to keep up with inflation, you're going to need around 1.2 million. But if you want your money to never run out, you'd need closer to 2.2 mil. And when you look at these three scenarios, what you're going to notice is that they start to get really, really wide in terms of the amount of money you need in your bank account at 65 as we move up the lifestyle ladder. And that's because the more you want to spend, the more you've got to fund it yourself. Basically, the less NZ Super covers. So let's say you only want to spend a little more than NZ Super when you retire. Well, you only need to save a little because you might only need to cover 10% of your lifestyle. But if you want double what the NZ Super pays out, well, you're going to need 5 times more money in the bank. And that's because you've got to fund half your lifestyle rather than just 10 or 20% of it. Now let's talk about the affluent lifestyle. This is where you can spend 150 grand a year or about $2,900 a week. Now, this lets you do a lot of things. It lets you have choices about the car you drive and when you want to replace it. It lets you travel where and when you like. If you can get sick as you get older, you don't have to wait in line. You can go private. Now, this is the level where you've got freedom and security, and it takes money to maintain that. Now, if you're not fussed with your spending keeping up with inflation, then you can live this lifestyle with about 1.6 million in the bank. Add on another 600K if you want to keep up with inflation. But if you want to only live off the returns of your investments and never touch the principal, you'd need 4.1 million. Now, it's easy to look at these big numbers and think, that's impossible. But what I'd say is at Opus Partners, we help Kiwis grow their wealth from 0 to 5 properties and move forward on this journey. Many of you might not know that my fiance is a financial advisor. She works with Kiwis at the other end of the spectrum, people right on the cusp of retirement. And the reality is that some New Zealanders really do get up to these numbers. Now, if over $4 million sounds too high, and it is for the majority of New Zealanders, you've got some options. You could spend less in retirement, or if you still want to spend that 150K a year, but don't really care if you're adjusting it for inflation, well, then you could retire and have $2.5 million less than in the high scenario. And that's the big idea. The money you need depends on how you want to set up your retirement. Now, if you want to go whole hog and want that ultra premium retirement, that's what we call the contribution lifestyle. This is where you're spending 200K a year or $3,800 a week. And if you can get to this, you're not just going to be able to look after yourself, you're going to be able to help your kids with their house deposits or support the grandchildren or give to the charities that you really care about. But to do that, you are going to need some serious money. $2.5 million in the bank account at 65. If we're talking about the low end, that's where you don't worry about your spending keeping up with inflation. $3.3 million if you do care about inflation. And if you dream really, really big, where your money sticks around, you pass it on to your family, you create generational wealth, 6.1 million is what you're going to need. Now, this is the top couple of percent, and the truth is not everyone is going to get up to the contribution lifestyle. You're going to need to be investing a lot of money for a long time, or you'll need a really high-paying job or business to make that happen. And that's okay, because the truth is, and the good news is, there's no set amount that you need to retire. It comes down to the lifestyle you want and how you're going to set up your money. And that's the reason why one guy recording a YouTube video can't tell you exactly what you need. But this is also the reason why I built my wealth plan. This is a tool that you can use to figure out what your number is based on all the things I've talked about in this video. And if you want to use it, you can book a free session with one of my team of financial advisors at Opus. Just visit our website, opuspartners.co.nz, click that big orange button and book a free session. If that's not your thing, no worries. You can also use the calculators at sorted.org.nz or anywhere else on the internet.